Hey guys, welcome to the first of the new 2020 tutorials, and I thought we'd start off with a hair tutorial. Going forward we're going to be doing lots of mini pieces, and we've got things like tiger eyes, noses, mouths, a couple of other hair studies, and then either halfway through or by the end of the year we'll work on doing one final big piece like we said before. But we're going to crack on this tutorial, and the colours we want are going to be listed in the post on the Patreon tutorial section. So have a look in the post, but we want walnut, nougat, dark sepia, Payne's grey, caput mortem, burnt ochre, cold grey 4, warm grey 2, ivory, and of course our buff titanium from the luminance range. We might bring in black later on. I need to see, because we have one very dark bit just underneath here, but we'll sort of play it by ear really, see how we go. So I'm just going to lighten up my artwork a little bit, or my line work. Hopefully you've downloaded yours, but it is there if you haven't done it yet. So just very lightly roll over. I don't want to get rid of too many lines because a lot of them will be hidden under the paper eventually. You'll see that she has no face. I've kept that blank. There we go. Okay. I have actually forgotten to get my eraser, so let's grab that now. And let's dive in. So as with always, we're going to start with our lighter colours. And we're going to start on this left side first, and we have a little bit of an ivory undertone, so that's the first thing we're going to go in with. And it's going to look a little bit strange because normally when you do things without a face it's the back of the hair, where of course we're not doing it that way today, just to be different. Just cleaning my eraser off. Going to get rid of some of these darker lines. She's got a little bit of hair that flicks out underneath her ear, and what I'm planning to do, I'm going to gauge it really, see how we get on, is just line her with a black liner or maybe with a blue pencil, just something so she's not this blank figure really. Okay, we're going to just block in the shadow now with the dark sepia. Let me zoom you in a touch while we're working on the top part of her head. May as well get you nice and close. I'm not going heavy, my layers are fairly light. And then we're going to grab our walnut, apologies. The nougat and the walnut are what's going to help us give us our colour value, and the greys are going to help us to tone those down, especially in the lighter areas. We're just going to brush upwards towards that parting, and she gets lighter as you come up towards the head, so we need to make sure that we don't go too heavy with our pencil. So we're just going to build up these layers. I'm going to grab my caput mortem because she has a slight red tone to her hair. We've got the nougat. The nougat is more of a neutral brown, whereas the walnut has more of a redder tone. So we can start building up some of those shadows now, so we can come in with the walnut, make it darker under here. Going to build up some depth as we go, make sure we've got a nice contrast between these darks and the lights. We've got a few stray hairs at the back, but we'll pop them in once we've done this section of the hair. Going to build up the shadow just where it starts to meet the forehead. Okay, I'm just going to grab my Payne's Grey. We're going to work on making a little dark area under here, just at the back there, and right under here where that little bit of hair seems to sort of curl over the rest or sit over the rest. Okay, we've got a nougat. Our Caput Mortem. Nougat. I'm going to lightly, with the nougat, just etch in a couple of those strands at the top we've got coming out. And then what I want to do with my buff titanium is just blend this little bit that comes towards that parting so it's a bit smoother. Get your brush, don't blow Bonnita. Okay, now I'm going to bring in the walnut a bit more, just to bring back some of that colour, because we know that the buff titanium does desaturate slightly. Altering the camera there because it was slightly off, so I want to get the colours as true as I can. Just do those wispy bits underneath. Okay, so for the moment that's how I'm going to leave. Looks a little bit washed out through the camera, but there is more colour to it. You'll see when you look at yours as you progress. But at the moment I'm going to leave this section and we'll work on the next ones, because it's the sort of thing that I will come back to and finalise if for any reason I feel it needs it. So we have quite a reddish base at this section here of the forehead. So we can pretty much go in and base that already, and we need to follow, there's a bit of a curved line, so we need to make sure we follow that with our pencil strokes. So just get some of that in and plan where they go. We stop around here. Let's bring in a bit of the Caput Mortem just at the base, because we want to do a bit of toning in here but without too much detail. Okay, now the burnt ochre is probably a bit of a random one to you, but like she's got a section here that has a little bit of orange just showing in it, and there is a little bit of orange in each of the shadow areas as we come down the hair, so we're going to be pulling that one out a bit more later on. So I tell you what, for now we're going to grab our walnut, I think, and we're going to patch all of our shadows in, or where our darkest areas of the hair will be. Don't go in too heavy, remember your pressure. And this is one of those times where you can get away with having gaps between your pencil lines, because it can help in the long run. So while we've still got it in our hands, we can just get some of the shadow, the deeper shadow lines where the hairs are sitting. So just pop a few in. You don't have to be exact to the reference with these. Got a dark patch under here. Now we're going to grab our ivory and we're just going to fill everything in with the ivory. Especially over where all the highlighted areas are. We can then bring in our nougat and again just extend some of those strands out. And what you're doing is building up the shadows that you get in between each strand of the hair. But because we're doing a lighter colour, it means then that we are not going in too strong too quickly. I'm just literally pushing my pencil up from the shadow into that highlight. Now we're going to grab our Caput Mortuum and we're going to lightly do the same. Keep building up. We will probably come in at some point at the end with our slice tool, just to give us some nice popping highlights, but the most we can do with our pencils the better. So we're building up, really the only highlights of this front bit here, everything else is a mid-tone, so we're building up our mid-tone. We just want to be softer as we come to this front area, which is where that highlight is. Okay, now we are going to grab our warm grey 2 even, apologies, and we're going to blend over what we've done so far. And what this does is it tones down that ivory. It helps blend some of the colours that we've put down together, and it just softens all the colours. Okay, we are going to grab our cap at mortem. We're going to start building up and working on this shadow in here. Dark sepia. Now don't be afraid at the very bottom here to do some solid patches of colour. You don't have to keep doing it literally what feels like strand by strand. I can see here now that where I've started doing this centre parting or off centre parking, dearie me, that we can just strengthen some of the shadows in this section down here now. And again, as we come down to this dark patch, and we've got a couple longer strandy areas. I'm really good with technical terms today in this section. Now again, because the dark sepia has quite a neutral tone to it, it just helps tone everything down as we work on it. So I'm going to pull you out a little bit more again because we want to start seeing it as a whole now. I've tried my best to alter the camera and the lighting because it just wasn't being true to what I see compared to what the camera was picking up. So hopefully it'll be a bit easier to see now. Working close up is great, but in reality, yeah, my camera's not liking it at the moment. So whilst I'm doing my best to save up for all the right gear, we are going to have to suffice for now. So I'm just going in with the yellow ochre, the burnt ochre, just to help again tone certain areas. I've purposely blue tacked this down so I don't have to keep moving the picture around. It makes it just easier for you guys to see. But you've had a good close-up of the motion that we were using, so at least you're aware. I'm just testing a thought right now. Okay, yeah, we are going to bring... somewhere to put it. Let's put it here. We're going to bring cinnamon into the mix. And that's because it gives us that sort of almost pale brown effect once we blend it over all the colours that we have. And it can do that without it looking really brown. So it looks a little bit more yellow through the camera than it actually is. There we go. Fiddle, fiddle, fiddle to get it as right as I possibly can. We're going to use the cinnamon to blend everything together. I'm just going to bring in the buff titanium to blend this front highlight. And we've got one at the back here, but I think I need to go darker at the back. I've got something underneath my paper. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the blending there. So all we need to do now is start building up the solid areas of colour. So I've got my walnut. I say it's quite strange doing the front of a hairstyle because we have no face to bring the hair down into. I'm just going to grab my Nougat as well because we need a bit more of a neutral tone on some of these. We just need to draw some little bits coming out onto what would be the forehead. Got a line there I need to get rid of. Then once we come in with the blade later on, we can help strengthen the, whoops, press too hard there. It's going well today. Going to grab my, let's grab my warm grey 3. I just need to tone down this colour at the back here on mine. There we go. Okay, so now we can really build up some contrast. So up the back here, it's much darker. We have one that comes in from the middle-ish. You can see now we're really starting to get a smooth, soft look to the hair. Okay, I'm going to grab my luminance. Just smooth out some of these highlight points. If you feel it desaturates it too much, you can get your ivory and do that instead. Entirely up to you. I'm just going to add a little bit of detail in with my walnut. And because we've already got either the ivory or the buff titanium down, it means that the colour doesn't go down as strong on top, which is what you want. You want a really nice soft addition, and it works really, really well to do that. Bring that highlight up a little bit more there. Okay, now if there's anywhere you want strengthened, you can grab your Payne's Grey. And it will just help to strengthen some of the shadows. My ivory in here. I think we need to come down a touch. So So I'm going to just shade over with the walnut. And then ivory, walnut. There we go, happier with that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to find the next darkest area, which is here. And we're going to bulk or block that area. You need to be careful because if you have a look on the reference, just here it's nice and dark, and then as it starts to curl, it gets lighter and then it gets darker again down this section. It's definitely important with wavy or curly hair to work on it sections at a time. Okay, so we can bring it up, and there's like a V up here as we come up. So we're creating, there's almost like a chevron shape in her hair for the highlight, and that's what we need to create. So we know that we can come down this way. We can come down this way. You see what I mean about this chevron shape here? So when we do any shading of any type, whether it be on hair, eyes, solid objects, it's much easier to look at shadow shapes or highlight shapes rather than trying to draw in highlights, and then that will naturally then, as you work and build up on them, give you exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so we can come down and bring some longer ones down now. Making sure to follow the shape and the lay of the hair. Okay, we can bring in a bit of the Caput Mortuum. I'm going to tone over the whole thing where we are in shadow, not so much highlight but more in the shadow. Just tilted the pencil slightly to give me a larger work area. And now I can gently come up into the shadow. Like so. I'm going to continue to work up with the walnut, I think. Two-pronged approach, so we're going to pincer movement it by going down from the bottom up into the middle and from the top down into the middle, and that's how we're going to build this up. What we can then do is grab our warm grey 3, and this is going to help tone everything down. Helps blend it all together, just helps give you a smoother surface. You don't want to burnish or anything at this stage, otherwise you're going to find layering a bit of a struggle, so just gently blend it all. I apologise that the colours keep changing. Okay, as we start to just add all these extra bits of detail in, you'll start to see volume added to the hair. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit of the burnt ochre. A little bit more of the Caput Mortuum. Burnt ochre. Oops. The cream, ivory even. Blend over all those highlight areas. I think the highlight area is pretty much the colour I want it to be. So we just need to work on the darker sections. So I'm just going to grab my dark sepia just to add some of the darker ones. I've got the dark sepia. I'm just going to start getting some finer detail in now. Just getting those darker patches so it's not quite such a flat, smooth shadow. I'm going to grab my walnut. Let's sharpen it again without snapping it this time. Just going to shade over the whole shadow area again, just keeping a few gaps in there for some of the highlighted hairs that you can see coming down. We can come into that highlight a bit more where we can see those patches. You don't have to burnish yours as much as I will probably end up burnishing mine. I know everybody's different with how they like to finish their portraits. So don't feel you have to go quite as smooth as I will probably do. You know, feel free through these tutorials to start really finding your own individual style. This is just to guide you through colours that can be used, different techniques, but you actually finding your own style is even more beneficial. Right, we can afford to come up into this highlighted section a little bit more now. It's really starting to come together and looking lovely and smooth and very natural. Want to define that chevron shape a little bit more, but we'll do that as we work on this lower shadow chunk area anyway, so it'll sort of naturally happen. If you picked that very clunky noise up there, that's my that's the wood in my office, because it's freezing cold but it's really sunny, so it's yeah, the wood tends to move about quite a bit. Okay, I think I'm going to grab my nougat, and I'm going to use the nougat to blend. I can still see paper through, but I don't want to particularly add any more layers, so I'm going to use the nougat to give me a natural blend. It means that I can do that without having to add any more colour. Okay, I'm aware to you that this doesn't look as reddish as it does. We've just lost the chevron shape up here, so I'm just grabbing the buff titanium just to bring back the shape up the top a little bit more. There we go. Okay, now in this section she's got lots of flyaway hair, so that's something we're going to come and do with the knife later on. I'm going to grab my ivory. Come down with the walnut again, just to accentuate this chevron shape. Just doing the odd flick up into the shadow area, only because although that is there, it's looking more like it's folding over, and we want to stop that. So I think what I might do is get rid of that shadow there. Can't put more just blend that, less of a, looks like it's a fold over then. Hard to describe, but hopefully you saw what I meant. Okay, so let's get some ivory down in this area first. And then we slowly, I think I'm going to bring in the nougat because we want it quite neutral. Just bring... I think we need to bring this up a bit more. I'm just going to take out some of the walnut that we laid down in this section. There we go. Joy of eraser shavings. Forgive that slurp noise if you heard that.
Sorry.
That was Coffee Man and not me. Okay, so we're gently going to just sketch in the wave that's on the hair. Now I'm going to bring in the cinnamon. So there was quite a lot of cinnamon but not red in this area. I'm going to use the Caput Mortuum, but we're going to use it lightly, and I'm only going to use it where I can see it getting a bit darker and a bit redder, so sort of in this zone here. Nougat, no, walnut. Just keep following the shape of the hair. As long as you follow that shape, you can't go wrong. Right, cold grey 4. There's a few very stray sort of light hairs that you can see. You're welcome to put those in. They are quite blonde, but I thought so you can see them, we'll do them in a lighter colour. Okay, I've got the nougat in my hand still. Just got to get some smoothing going on. Nougat. blend over. I've had to lighten the camera a bit so you can see a bit better, so apologies if the colouring has gone a bit awry again. So I'm going to grab my Caput Mortar and just add a bit more tone in some of these areas. A little bit in here, we don't need a lot. We'll probably use the cinnamon and the ivory to help us do a lot of the blending. So cinnamon, few, not many, but sort of hairs that come out. There. Blend over with the ivory. I'm going to try and avoid the luminance as much as I can because it can hinder layering sometimes. And the walnut. Okay, so we've got the dark above the edge of the rather large wave or curl. That was the nougat. Yeah, no, the nougat. Ugh. That was the walnut. This is the nougat. Right, that's the walnut. I'm now going to move on to the Caput Mortem. Dark sepia. Walnut. And I'm now going to get the buff titanium. what we're going to do is we're going to work on the little bit that's underneath, because I need to know how light or dark this section above needs to be. So we know that we can go straight away fairly dark, so I'm going to base it with the dark sepia. So we've got a block shadow here, and we've got one down here, but I'll move the camera down as we come to it. Nougat. While I have it in my hand, we may as well get in some of the shadow that we need under here. Cap and mortar. Nougat, walnut. I will get these two right one day. There's a tiny bit of gap, just literally a tiny bit. That will do. Okay, now I'm going to blend this with the cinnamon, or fill the space with the cinnamon, I should say. Okay, I can now come over with the ivory. And the walnut. We're just going to start blocking in where we can see any sort of clumps of shadow. Again, making sure that you're going in the direction of that curl or the wave. Do this little one here, get this one out of the way. Still got the walnut in my hand. A few stray hairs that come from the end of that curl. Just define that a little bit over. Grab that ivory. Dark sepia. Nougat. I'm probably a little bit too dark on this peak here, so I'll just get rid of some of that. Pretty much all we've got to do on this little one. Just a final blend with the buff titanium, I think. I'm going to go over the cinnamon, just put some of the colour back, and while I have the cinnamon in my hand, let's give this a quick blend. Okay, so we've got quite a strong shadow in there, so let's go with the dark sepia. Make sure we get that in. And then we just got to patch some darkness in here because this section here sits above this one, so we need to make sure that we indicate that. And we've got another section here. Just going to grab my dark sepia for, no, my caput mortuum for this area in here. Going to keep working on our shadows and building this shadow up. And then I'm going to grab my buff titanium and blend out, and I'm probably not going to do any colour over the top because I do want it to be a bit desaturated. A little bit of the burnt ochre. I think I probably could bring a little bit of the burnt ochre into this section actually. Just going to define that bit a little bit more. There we go. Okay, let's keep building up. You don't want your shadow strands or your highlight strands just to stop suddenly. You really want to get them blended in. Grab my dark sepia. Caput mortem. You noticed how little highlights we've had to do by using the eraser. Use the nougat just to neutralise that tiny bit. Walnut. Caput mortem. I'm going to show you while we're here now. This is what we're going to go back later on and do, where we can just lift out a few of those highlights that we really want to make a little bit stronger. So when we come up to do this section, we can really bring them out. But we'll have a proper play with that a bit later. Okay, so again patching in where our darker areas are. I've got the walnut in my hand. And then we're going to grab the caput mortem . Building it up. Right, I'm going to grab the cinnamon . And we're quite a neutral colour, so I'm going to grab my warm grey 3. I'm going to strengthen that strand there. Got a little flyaway. Okay, I've got the walnut again. Again, just following the shape of that hair. A few strandy bits in there. Almost there, guys. Dark sepia. Cap and Mortem. A little bit of the yellow ochre, burnt ochre. Ivory. And then by the looks of it, we need to actually bring this out here. There we go, that's better. I think we could actually do with a bit more burnt oak around here. Okay, we are going to repeat that process for the last of the cowl. Again, just making sure you're going in the right direction. Walnut. Cap and Mortem. walnut, cinnamon, ivory, I'm going to grab my buff titanium just to desaturate some of that a little bit. Yellow, burnt ochre, I keep saying yellow ochre, it's burnt ochre. Walnut. Ivory, just finalising and neatening up. Okay, I think we're at a point where we can actually come in with our blade. And add some final highlights. Adding the odd hair here or there that's astray, that makes it look much more natural. Okay, so I think we can go in with the blade now. Don't think you need to be zoomed in for this, but I wanted you out enough that you could see the effect. Don't go too crazy when you do these. But it really can aid to that final finished effect. So that is it, guys. We are done for the first of the new 2020 tutorials. I'm going to give you a glimpse of it close up. Hopefully the colour will be a little bit better. So there we have the final finished hair. I hope you enjoyed that one, and I shall see you guys on the next tutorial. Don't forget to come and share in the Patreon group. I love seeing all your progress and your work, so yeah, come and share. It'd be lovely to see it. So see you in the next one, guys. Bye.